Let's move on into our second lesson. Here we're going to talk about two things. One is the biology of sexuality, and the other one is a brief discussion into evolutionary psychology. Now, let's first focus on the biology. There's a big phrase in the field of psychology which is very popular right now. It was introduced, say, like 10 years ago, and has become more and more prevalent and more relevant through the years. Everything psychological is simultaneously biological. That means that we should try to understand mental processes and behavior from a biological perspective. So there's a lot of pressure in the field currently to try to understand patterns of thought and behavior from a biological perspective. If specifically we focus on sexuality, let's talk a little bit about hormones and neurotransmitters. Both are chemicals. Both are chemicals that we naturally produce in our body. They're somewhat different and people very commonly confuse them, which is normal because both are chemicals, you know. Now, the thing is, hormones tend to be somewhat mostly dormant in our body until our adolescent years, and they tend to peak, and they remain somewhat stable through our adulthood years, though they kind of shift down a little bit by our elderly years. Hormones are transmitted through our blood, primarily, and they have a big influence on our sexual behavior. Neurotransmitters, though, are continuously active, and those ones are not that ruled by age, so we tend to have them at different points of our life, and they're not that affected by us growing older or by us growing younger, not growing younger, but being younger. Neurotransmitters are transmitted through the brain directly, so they tend to be faster. They make this analogy about both send messages to yourself, so they put it like this. Neurotransmitters, when they send you a message, they just text you, boom, 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 send you the text right away. And hormones are going to write you a letter, go out to the postal office, put it in there. Eventually you'll get the message, but it's going to take far longer. So hormones take longer, but nonetheless, they do have a strong influence on us. How does this relate to sexual behavior? So, hormones. Let's focus on one specifically, which is testosterone. Research in sexuality shows with, definitive proof that testosterone has a big influence on aggression, but that's not sexual behavior, so let's shove that to the side. But the main thing is sexual desire. Testosterone is linked to a biological sexual desire, and that's a reality. The more testosterone you have in the body, the bigger your sexual desire tends to be. If you want to keep it in simple terms, the more horny you are. Testosterone changes through the years, but it's a reality that testosterone starts to be especially produced through our adolescent years. So it's no surprise that adolescents can be a little bit more horny than people at any other age. We have more testosterone. You have more testosterone in the body. I'm not an adolescent anymore. Now, one thing that is important to know here is specific behaviors can affect the level of testosterone that you may have at different points in life. And the main point of focus here is testosterone is produced mostly by males. Women produce testosterone, but it's about 1/20th of the capacity or to the rate that a male produces testosterone. Women produce testosterone, but it's far lower than men. So, biologically, men, we tend to be a little bit more biologically driven to be interested in sex. Now, I'm going to blow your mind with this comment. Men think more about sex than women. And your mind right now is like, say what? I mean, it's not a big deal. I mean, you know that. Men, we do think more about sex than women. There have been a lot of different studies that some of them just pretty much are even funny, where they try to compare the number of sexual partners that a male wants compared to a female, and in every country where this has been surveyed, males always want more sexual partners than women. There was a classic study in social psychology where a very attractive male research assistant went randomly on a college campus to ask all women, and each one had a task of something like asking 1,000 random women if they would like to have sex with them. So the very attractive male research assistant went out randomly to ask like 1,000 women if they would like to have sex with them. And I think nobody said yes, like all of us said no. But then there was, on the other side, a very attractive research assistant, a female, a woman research assistant, the same task, go on campus, look out for 1,000 different random men and ask them if they would like to have sex with them. And something like 90-something% of the guys said yes. So, you know, some of those studies are even funny. It's a reality, but I do want to put out a point here that this is not to say that men have permission to say that we're just animals. Like, we're not. We have a very well-developed brain. But the reality is that most often, when we think about sex, men are a little bit more inclined for the act, while women have typically a little bit more control over it. So, there can be two things in sex. There can be the sexual act, like the actual act, or there could be the context in which the act is happening. This, of course, doesn't apply to everybody, but if you take it on the most common pattern, males are a little bit more interested in the act, while women tend to be a little bit more interested in the context where the act is happening. This changes a lot, and that will be touched on the second half of this video. So for now, this is in regards to testosterone. It's linked to a sexual drive. Now, neurotransmitters, remember, those are faster. And we want to focus on two, which is dopamine and oxytocin. So, dopamine is the one that gives us the sense of excitement. Dopamine is the one that gives the sense of illusion. Those are the ones that give us the sense of enjoyment, immense happiness. That's dopamine. If you can remember, say as a kid, waiting for Christmas and opening up a present, the excitement that kids reflect is contagious, it's cool, it's awesome to see. It's dopamine released crazily through the brain that allows the kid to do those kind of expressions. Well, dopamine is released in your brain when you fall in love, especially when you fall in love madly with someone. It's dopamine released through the brain, which gives a lot of different behaviors, thoughts. Now you find yourself thinking about that person over and over and over again. You find yourself desiring in a big desire to talk to the person, to hold the person, to kiss the person. That's dopamine in your brain running wild. This is not a bad thing. I'm just trying to explain biologically what's behind it. However, here's the thing. Based on studies on sexuality and psychology, it is well known that dopamine doesn't remain constant to a person always. So dopamine naturally tends to decrease after you've been a long time with a person. How long? Typically, it's about 2 years. If you're starting to date someone at the time that you're watching this video, it might feel somewhat interested, that you may now feel a lot of emotion, excitement to be with a person, and you say, I'm falling madly in love, and you are, perhaps you are. But that feeling doesn't usually last forever. Past 2 years, most often, because there have been some studies where some couples do maintain that level of dopamine well into their relationship, but most people, after 2 years, kind of fade away a little bit on the dopamine, and people think that mistakenly, they think that they now fell out of love, and they see someone else that is bringing out those instincts in them, and now they fall in love with this person. That is tricky, because people can be somewhat hooked, somewhat addicted to that feeling of excitement, thinking that they're just falling in love everywhere. In reality, it's dopamine in your brain that is making you feel like that. Oxytocin, on the other hand, is a different type of love. It's not falling madly in love to be with someone, touch someone, kiss someone, but it's that kind of appreciation that you get for someone, and it's not sexual at all. It's a type of love that is affection. It's a type of love that is caring for the person. If I'm honest, there are times when I see my mom, and I just feel this need to go out, hug her, and tell her that I love that woman so much. That's oxytocin in my brain that is connected, and the sight of my mom brings me a big sense of love and warmth and affection that I don't have with just any random person out there. If you have a friend that you care for a lot and you feel like you really, really want the best for this person and you really, really, perceive this person as someone important in your life, that's oxytocin. So, oxytocin is a different type of love. Not sexual, but it's a type of love in which you feel affection for a person. Cool? Notice how those lead to different behaviors. So, you may have a lot of sexual desire for someone, but that may not translate into caring for that person. Perhaps you have a lot of testosterone that is making you super horny, and the sight of someone as super attractive makes you want to be sexually with that person, but it's not like you're falling in love with that person. Distinction, this is sex, but it's not love. And you may not feel any type of affection for that person at all. You may have a lot of affection for one person and like him a lot for as far as somebody close to you, but not being in love with them, not liking them sexually. And what you have then is friend zone. Or you may be madly in love with someone, and when the person leaves, if the person leaves, you get into this kind of stalking, oddly kind of toxic behaviors where you want to be with that person, you want to be texting that person, you want to be looking out for that person. There's dopamine running wild through your brain trying to seek that kind of craving, trying to fulfill that craving that you have for that. Well, is not really caring for the person, or is not maybe not desiring that person sexually, so they affect us differently. Everything psychological is simultaneously biological. Now, let's move into evolution. Now, be aware on evolutionary psychology. This is a branch within psychology where people just take the liberty to come up with ideas for why our behavior is some way or why our thoughts are one way. They don't tell us how things are, they just try to create ideas for why we are the way that we are. And this field tends to be bashed very often because it can be very sexist. So, I'm going to offer some ideas, which I'm not saying is the exact reality, I'm just saying some ideas that have been offered on evolutionary psychology, and they can lend us some nonetheless interesting thoughts into why men and women can be different. So, according to evolutionary psychology, evolution naturally trained our mind to think specifically or to act in specific ways. And when it comes to sexuality, thinking for example about attraction. Attraction varies by age. I have a lot of contact with students because I have a student club, Teen Survivor, and very often students come in to talk to me, and I will never forget, there was one time that I had a student, she was an adolescent female, and she came in because she was telling me that she had a big problem in her mind. Sometimes I open my door for students to come in and ask any questions they have. So this girl was saying that she was like 17 and she had a big problem in her family because she's fallen in love with someone in school. And that someone is the bad guy. There's a kid that has liked her since they were kids. Another adolescent like her, but she's not interested in him. He's boring, he's too much of a good kid, he has good grades, his family loves him, he loves his family, he's just such a good kid. And she doesn't like that, she likes the bad kid. She likes the kid, I don't know if he's a teenager as well, but she tells me that he's driving a motorcycle and she loves that. This kid has problems with other people, this bad boy attitude, and she's crazy for that kid. And she's telling me even though she knows that this other kid, that is a really good kid, is the best thing for her, she cannot explain why she likes this bad kid so much. It's interesting because that's the thought of a normal 17-year-old. But I guarantee you a woman at 30 years of age doesn't see it that way. Because the same bad kid at an older age is no longer the thing that you're interested in. If you don't see a reliable future on this kid as a 17-year-old, you definitely didn't see it on this as a 30-year-old man. The thing that you may find attractive varies by your age, and it may vary by your sex. So again, warning, this is again super sexist, and this is not me talking, this is from a standpoint of evolutionary psychology. From an evolutionary standpoint, males want to maximize the amount of partners that we can have because it increases the odds that we'll have kids and that our ancestry will remain. So, as a male, I'm interested in a lot of different partners, a lot of different sexual partners. And the younger they are, the better. Because if I can get pregnant 5 women at once, then it's better for me. I have more chances that we'll have more kids and my legacy will continue. If I were a woman, I would think about it differently because I can get pregnant once in a while. As a male, you can get 5 women pregnant at the same time, but as a woman, you can be pregnant only once for one guy. So when you get older, you're no longer interested in the looks and the body or so on. When you get older, you're interested in the potential future that a person may have. So if I'm going to be pregnant, that is someone that will take care for me, that will take care over me and make sure that I'm going to be fine. And that's the idea of evolutionary psychology. Women can be not as interested as men in the looks, because for us men, a good look and a youthful look implies a higher chance of survival for our kids. But for a woman, looks don't matter that much. Survival is about who's going to protect me. So in the old times, it was the strongest male, it was the most aggressive male that could protect physically. But in our times, it's not about being physically intimidating, but of being economically intimidating. So wealth, a stable environment, a stable home can be big sources of attraction for a woman if, the thing is survival. Now on the other hand, it's interesting because they say there's a difference between being restricted or unrestricted. So if you're restricted into thinking of the potential of a relationship, a stable family, and so on, then those things can matter a lot. However, if it's unrestricted, and from a woman's standpoint, I'm not interested in having a family with this guy, I'm just interested in being sexually with this guy, then at that point looks matter a lot more. If I'm not interested in establishing a relationship with this guy, but I just want to have a couple nights of fun, then the looks matter more. I'm not interested in having kids, I'm just interested in having sexual activity. So attraction at that point changes a lot. And also it has been noticed that in societies where women have an equal or higher income than men, that stability, economic, financial, disappears. It's no longer about having money because I have money on my own. So it's interesting that as women are having a little bit more and more equality compared to men as far as income, that perspective of having money and attracting women for that is losing a lot of its strength. Very interesting for how that is changing from an evolutionary standpoint. Now, that talks about attraction, that talks about age, and that talks about desire. To finish up the topic really quick, in regards to jealousy, super interesting how in the same idea that I want to spread as a male my seed and I want to have so many different partners, jealousy can be taken in 2 ways. There can be jealousy if my partner were to be cheating on me. There could be jealousy based on the possibility of physical intimacy with someone else, or the possibility of falling in love for someone else. As a male, I'm interested in knowing if a woman that is my partner being pregnant is carrying my child or carrying someone else's child. So if I know that my partner cheated on me, what I'm most interested in is knowing that you had sex with that person, you had sex with that guy. That tends to hurt as a male more than falling in love with that guy. However, if on the other hand you see it from the female perspective, it could be being sexually intimate with someone, or it could be falling in love with someone. Being sexually intimate with someone sucks, but as a woman, if you fall in love with that person, maybe that person will entice you and take you away from me. And if I'm pregnant and you leave, I'm going to be carrying on my pregnancy on my own. So, as a woman, the sexual infidelity sucks, but what may suck more is the emotional infidelity. Men and women may perceive those things differently, and you may carry or see instances where a guy say, I was texting someone, sure, but I had never sex with her. And the woman is saying, but still cheating. And the guy is saying, how is it cheating if I never even kissed the person? Yeah, but you're cheating with me emotionally. And the other guy is like, yeah, but I never touched the person. So we see those things differently, and that's coming from evolution. it's interesting how those ideas can be traced back to generations and generations and generations and causing our mind to be thinking one way or another. This is not to say that it's a reality for everybody, and as you know at this point, again, very sexist, so it's bashed a lot, very heavily criticized, but nonetheless, it paints an interesting picture of how our ancestry may be somewhat affecting our thoughts. Hopefully you like this lesson. Looking forward to read your responses on this. Good work.